Stop looking at the bride. Look at me. Those 6 words, whispered by a stranger in a crowded ballroom, would shatter everything Adrian Brooks thought he knew about his broken life. In that single moment, surrounded by champagne glasses and forced laughter, a 30-year-old single father barely scraping by came face to face with Elena Whitmore, a billionaire CEO who saw something in him that no one else could see. What happened next wasn't just a career change. It was a collision between 2 worlds that should never have touched. This is their story. Before we begin, hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's dive in. The Sinclair Hotel ballroom shimmered like something out of a fever dream, all crystal chandeliers and ivory silk, the kind of opulence that made Adrian Brooks acutely aware of every frayed thread in his navy suit. He stood at the periphery of the reception, a shadow among the gleaming crowd, nursing a glass of champagne he hadn't paid for and wouldn't finish. Weddings had become torture chambers for him. Beautiful, elegant torture chambers. Adrian watched the bride, Rebecca something, he'd forgotten her married name already, spin across the marble floor in her $1,000 gown, her face radiant with the kind of joy he remembered feeling once, a lifetime ago. The groom, Marcus Chen, had been Adrian's lab partner in organic chemistry at Northwestern. Smart guy, good guy, the kind of guy who'd made all the right choices and ended up here, in this palace of success, surrounded by people who belonged. Adrian didn't belong. He knew it. They knew it. The difference was they were all too polite to say it out loud. Uncle Adrian. He turned to see Leo's face on his phone screen. His sister had set up a video call so his 5-year-old son could see the fancy party. Leo's gap-toothed grin cut through the pretense like sunlight through fog. "Hey, buddy," Adrian said softly, stepping further into the shadows near the back wall. "You should be asleep. Auntie Sarah said I could say goodnight to you first." "Is it really, really fancy?" Adrian glanced around at the ice sculptures, the 7-tier cake, the live orchestra. "Yeah, kiddo, really, really fancy. Do they have chicken nuggets?" A genuine smile cracked Adrian's tired face. "I don't think so." "Then it's not that fancy," Leo declared with the absolute certainty of a kindergartner. "Chicken nuggets are fancy." "You're absolutely right. I'll tell them they messed up." "Okay, love you, Dad." "Love you too, Leo. Sweet dreams." The screen went dark, and Adrian was alone again in the golden crowd. He shouldn't have come. Marcus had invited him out of obligation. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since Adrian's life had imploded in slow motion. The divorce, the debt. The humiliation of moving from a 3-bedroom house in Evanston back to a cramped apartment in Logan Square. Watching his ex-wife, Jennifer, rebuild her life with someone better, while he worked 60-hour weeks just to keep Leo in decent shoes. But Marcus had sent the invitation, and some part of Adrian, the part that still remembered who he used to be, couldn't bring himself to decline. So here he stood, a ghost at the feast, surrounded by investment bankers and tech executives and startup founders, all of them speaking a language of success he no longer understood. "The filet mignon is incredible," someone said nearby, a woman in a dress that probably cost more than Adrian's monthly rent. "Did you hear Marcus is launching that Singapore expansion?" her companion replied. "Brilliant move, absolutely brilliant." Adrian took a small step backward, trying to disappear further into the wallpaper. He'd been doing that a lot lately. Disappearing. At work, he was the guy who fixed problems nobody else noticed. At parent-teacher conferences, he was the single dad who showed up exhausted but always on time. At moments like this, he was the college friend who'd peaked early and faded fast. A cautionary tale in a navy suit that didn't quite fit anymore. The orchestra shifted into something slow and romantic. Adrian recognized it. The same song that had played at his own wedding, back when he'd believed in forever. Jennifer had looked so beautiful that day, hadn't she? Before the arguments about money, before the late-night fights about ambition and sacrifice, before she'd looked at him one morning and said, with devastating calm, "I can't do this anymore, Adrian. I feel like I'm drowning." He'd wanted to tell her that he was drowning too, that he was working himself to the bone trying to give her the life she deserved, that he didn't know how to be enough for anyone anymore, but he just signed the divorce papers instead. "Stop looking at the bride." The voice came from directly beside him, soft, controlled, with an edge of amusement that suggested she'd been watching him for a while. "Look at me." Adrian turned, startled out of his memories, and found himself staring at a woman who didn't belong in his universe. She was beautiful, yes, dark hair pulled back in an elegant knot, a crimson dress that probably had a designer name he'd never heard of. But that wasn't what stopped his breath. It was the way she stood. The absolute confidence in her posture, the intelligence burning in her gray eyes, the sense that she was used to being the most powerful person in any room she entered, and she was looking directly at him. Adrian started, then stopped, because he had no idea what to say. "You've been staring at Rebecca for the past 10 minutes, the woman said calmly. "People are starting to notice." Heat flooded Adrian's face. I wasn't staring at her like that. I was just remembering, the woman finished for him. "I know. That's why I'm rescuing you before someone gets the wrong idea and Marcus's groomsmen decide to defend her honor." Adrian glanced around and realized with horror that a few people were watching him with vague suspicion. He must have looked like a creep, standing in the shadows fixating on the bride. "God," he muttered, "I should just leave." "Or," the woman said, "you could get some air with me. There's a terrace through those doors. Much less awkward than slinking away like you robbed the place." She didn't wait for his answer, just started walking toward the French doors that led outside. After a moment of stunned hesitation, Adrian followed. The November air hit him like a slap, cold and sharp, and Chicago brutal. The terrace overlooked Grant Park, the city lights sprawling out like scattered diamonds against the darkness of Lake Michigan. Adrian shoved his hands in his pockets and tried to figure out why this stranger was being kind to him. "Better?" she asked, leaning against the stone railing. "I wasn't staring at her because I wanted her," Adrian said quietly. "In case that's what you thought." "I know." "Then why?" "Because you look like a man at a funeral pretending it's a party," the woman said simply. "And I know that feeling." Adrian studied her more carefully. Up close, he could see the faint shadows under her eyes, the slight tension in her shoulders despite her perfect posture. She looked like someone who carried weight no one else could see. "I'm Adrian," he said after a moment. "Adrian Brooks. Elena Whitmore." The name hit him like cold water. Elena Whitmore. He knew that name. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. Whitmore Systems, the tech company that had revolutionized supply chain logistics and made its founder a billionaire before she turned 30. She'd been on the cover of Fortune magazine 3 months ago. "The future of industry," the headline had called her. And she was standing on a terrace with him, making small talk like they were equals. "You're," Adrian started. "Yes," Elena said, a flicker of something tired crossing her face. "I am. And you're about to get weird, aren't you?" "No," Adrian lied. "Most people do. They either fawn or flee. Which one are you?" Adrian considered this. "Can I pick neither and just stand here quietly panicking?" A genuine smile touched Elena's lips. "That's a refreshing third option." They stood in silence for a moment, the noise of the reception muffled behind them. Adrian's mind raced. Why was Elena Whitmore talking to him? What did she want? Was this some kind of charity thing, like spotting the sad divorced guy and offering pity? "How do you know Marcus?" Elena asked, mercifully breaking the silence. "College. We were in the same chemistry class. You?" "Business school. He consulted for one of my early projects." She glanced back at the ballroom. "He's done well for himself." "Yeah," Adrian said softly. "Some people do." Elena turned to look at him fully. "And you?" "Me?" Adrian laughed, a bitter sound. "I'm the guy who proves that working hard doesn't always mean working smart. I'm really good at my job. Borderline excellent, actually. I just happen to be excellent at a job that doesn't pay well and doesn't go anywhere." "What do you do?" "Operations coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company. Basically, I make sure trucks show up on time and warehouses don't catch fire. Very glamorous." "Logistics is the backbone of modern commerce," Elena said seriously. "Nothing happens without it." "Tell that to my salary." Elena laughed. A real laugh, not the polite social kind. "Fair point. Still, operations is where the real magic happens. Most executives have no idea how their own companies actually function. They're too busy with vision boards and quarterly earnings." Adrian blinked. "You run a logistics tech company and you just insulted executives. Aren't you one?" "Doesn't mean I can't see the truth," Elena said. I started Whitmore Systems because I was tired of watching brilliant operations people get ignored while mediocre MBAs got promoted. The people who actually make things work are invisible until something breaks. That's... Adrian searched for words. That's exactly right. I know it is. I lived it. Elena's gaze drifted to the city lights. Before I had money, I worked inventory at a distribution center in Indiana. Night shifts. Brutal hours. My manager had a master's degree in supply chain management and made $38,000 a year while the regional VP, who couldn't tell a pallet from a forklift, pulled in $200,000. Adrian stared at her. This woman, this billionaire, had worked warehouse inventory? You're surprised, Elena observed. A little, yeah. Everyone is. It doesn't fit the narrative. Self-made billionaire is supposed to mean tech prodigy in a garage, not exhausted woman scanning boxes at 2 a.m. She shrugged. But that's where I learned everything. In the warehouse, watching systems fail, seeing where the inefficiencies were, understanding the gap between what executives thought was happening and what actually happened on the floor. And you built a company on that, Adrian said slowly. I built a company on believing that the people doing the real work know more than they're given credit for. Elena met his eyes. Which is why I noticed you tonight. Adrian's heart skipped. Noticed me? You helped that elderly couple find their seats when no one else bothered. You clapped genuinely during the vows. I could tell because you looked happy for them instead of bored. You carry yourself like someone who's used to being useful instead of important. She paused. And you weren't staring at Rebecca because you wanted her. You were staring at her because you remembered what it felt like to believe in something. The accuracy of her observation hit Adrian like a physical blow. His voice caught. How did you... Because I've seen that look before, Elena said softly. Hell, I've worn that look. When you lose something that mattered, a relationship, a dream, a version of yourself you thought was permanent, weddings become mirrors. You're not watching the bride. You're watching the ghost of who you used to be. Adrian's hands tightened on the railing. He should say something, deflect, make a joke, change the subject. Instead, he told the truth. 5 years ago, I was supposed to be where Marcus is now, Adrian said quietly. Good job, beautiful wife, plans for the future. Then the economy shifted. My company downsized. And suddenly I was working twice as hard for half the money. My wife, Jennifer, she tried to hang on, but I could see it in her eyes. The disappointment. The realization that she'd married potential, not results. Did she leave you for someone else? Eventually, but she left me emotionally long before that. Adrian exhaled slowly. She wanted a partner who could give her stability, security. I wanted to be that person. But wanting something doesn't make it real. And now? Now I have a 5-year-old son who thinks chicken nuggets are fancy, a job that pays just enough to keep us afloat, and a really bad habit of going to weddings and torturing myself with memories. He glanced at her. Your turn. Why are you out here talking to me instead of in there networking with people who could actually help your business? Elena smiled faintly. Because in that room, I'm Elena Whitmore, CEO. Everyone wants something from me. A deal, an investment, a connection. They see the company, not the person. And out here? Out here, you have no idea what I'm worth and you still treated me like a human being. She tilted her head. That's rare. I definitely know what you're worth now, Adrian said. Forbes said $3.2 billion. 3.4, actually. The article was outdated. Oh well, my mistake. Only $3.2 billion. Practically broke. Elena laughed again, and Adrian felt something shift in his chest, something that had been frozen for years starting to thaw. They talked for another hour on that terrace, not about business or money or success, about small things, stupid things. Chicago deep dish pizza versus New York style, the best route to avoid Lakeshore Drive traffic. College stories that seemed impossibly distant now, favorite movies, worst first dates. At one point, Elena mentioned that she hadn't been on a real date in 2 years because every man she met either wanted to pitch her a startup or marry her for her money. That's depressing, Adrian said. So is staring at brides and remembering your divorce, Elena countered. Touché. Do you hate her? Elena asked suddenly. Your ex-wife. Adrian considered this. No, I hate that I wasn't enough for her. But I don't hate her. She wanted a life I couldn't give her. That's not evil. It's just sad. You're more mature than most people. I'm too tired to hold grudges, Adrian admitted. Single parenting doesn't leave energy for bitterness. How's your son handling it? The divorce? Leo's a good kid, resilient. He doesn't remember much about when we were all together, which is probably a mercy. Adrian's expression softened. He's the reason I get up in the morning, literally. He jumps on my bed at 6 a.m. demanding pancakes. Pancakes are non-negotiable? Apparently they're a fundamental human right according to kindergarten philosophy. Elena grinned. Smart kid. Too smart. Last week he asked me why his friend's house has a pool and ours doesn't. I had to explain economic inequality to a 5-year-old. What did you tell him? That some families have more money, and that's not fair, but it doesn't mean we're not lucky. We have each other, and that's what matters. Adrian shrugged. He seemed satisfied. Then he asked if we could get a dog instead of a pool. Did you? I'm still considering it. Dogs are cheaper than pools, but more expensive than my current mental health can handle. They laughed together, and for a moment, one brief, shining moment, Adrian forgot about the weight he carried. The debt, the exhaustion, the crushing awareness that he was one emergency away from financial collapse. He just felt normal. I should get back inside, Elena said eventually, though she didn't move. People will wonder where I disappeared to. Right. Yeah, of course. Adrian straightened, suddenly aware that this conversation, this strange, wonderful conversation, was ending. Adrian, Elena said, her voice serious now. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy with your job? The question caught him off guard. Happy? I don't know if happiness is the right metric. It pays the bills, mostly, and I'm good at it. That's not what I asked. Adrian met her eyes. No, he said quietly. I'm not happy. But happiness feels like a luxury I can't afford right now. I'm focused on survival. Elena nodded slowly, as if he'd confirmed something she already suspected. Thank you for being honest. Why did you ask? Because I think you're the kind of person who's too talented to be invisible and too proud to admit it. She pulled a business card from her clutch. Actual paper, elegant and simple. If you ever want to talk about opportunities that might actually value what you're worth, call me. Adrian took the card, feeling its weight. Elena Whitmore's his CEO, Whitmore Systems. A direct number was handwritten on the back. He started. I'm not looking for charity. Good, Elena said firmly. Because I don't do charity. I do business. And I have an instinct for people who are capable of more than they're currently doing. She held his gaze. You helped an elderly couple find seats at a wedding where you barely know anyone. You spoke honestly about your failures instead of hiding behind ego. You love your son more than you care about impressing strangers. Those aren't small things, Adrian. Those are the foundation of real character. Adrian's throat tightened. You got all that from watching me for an hour? I got that from watching you for 10 minutes. The hour just confirmed it. Elena's smile was soft now, almost vulnerable. Call me if you want. Or don't. Either way, it was nice to meet someone real tonight. She walked back toward the ballroom, her heels clicking against the stone. Adrian stood alone on the terrace, the business card in his hand, the city sprawling before him like a promise he didn't quite believe yet. Inside, the orchestra was playing The Last Dance. But outside, under the November stars, something new was beginning. Something Adrian couldn't name yet, but could feel stirring in the ruins of his broken plans. He looked down at the card again. Then he looked at the city. Then, very carefully, he tucked the card into his wallet and walked back into the light. What Adrian didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Elena Whitmore had noticed him long before she spoke to him. She'd seen him arrive alone, watched him help strangers, observed the way he clapped for the bride and groom with genuine joy despite the sadness in his eyes. She'd seen something in him that no one had seen in a long time. Potential. And Elena Whitmore had built an empire on potential. But the reception was winding down when Adrian finally found Marcus near the coat check, loosening his tie and looking pleasantly exhausted. Adrian, I was hoping I'd catch you before you left. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Thanks for coming, man. I know you're busy with Leo and everything. Wouldn't have missed it, Adrian lied smoothly. Beautiful ceremony. Rebecca planned the whole thing. I just showed up and said, I do. Marcus grinned. Hey, I saw you talking to Elena Whitmore earlier. How the hell do you know her? I don't, Adrian said. We just talked. On the terrace. Marcus's eyes widened. Dude, do you have any idea who that is? I looked her up on my phone about 5 minutes ago, so yes, now I do. She's a legend, an actual legend. She turned down a $2 billion acquisition offer from Amazon last year because she didn't want to lose control of her company. Marcus lowered his voice. What did you guys talk about? Pizza, traffic, her warehouse inventory days? Her what? Apparently she used to work night shifts at a distribution center. Marcus shook his head in amazement. And she just told you that? Yeah. Adrian frowned. Is that weird? Adrian, Elena Whitmore doesn't talk to people at weddings. She shows up for optics, shakes the right hands, and leaves. The fact that she spent an hour with you on a terrace talking about pizza. Marcus trailed off. That's not normal. Maybe she was bored. Or maybe she saw something in you. Marcus's expression turned serious. Listen, man, I know things have been tough since the divorce, but you're still one of the smartest people I know. If Elena Whitmore gave you her card, and I'm guessing she did, based on the look on your face, you should call her. She's a billionaire, Marcus. So? You're a guy who turns failing operations into success stories and never gets credit. That's literally her whole business model, finding invisible talent and giving it a platform. Marcus squeezed his shoulder. Don't count yourself out before you even try. Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons why a woman like Elena Whitmore couldn't possibly be serious about helping someone like him, but Marcus believed in him. And that belief, however small, felt like oxygen. I'll think about it, Adrian said. Good. Now get home to that kid of yours. And Adrian? Yeah? It was really good to see you tonight, Ma Ting. Adrian took the L train home, too tired to justify the cost of an Uber. The car was half empty, filled with the kinds of people who worked weekend nights, nurses, bartenders, security guards, people like him who kept the city running while other people slept. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos. The most recent one was Leo, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a finger painting he'd made at school. The painting was supposed to be a dinosaur, but looked more like a lopsided potato with legs. Adrian smiled. This was why he did it. All of it. The exhaustion, the sacrifice, the quiet humiliation of being broke at a rich person's wedding. Because Leo deserved a father who showed up, who tried, who didn't give up even when giving up would be easier. And maybe, just maybe, Leo deserved a father who was willing to take a risk. Adrian pulled Elena's card from his wallet and stared at it for a long time. Then he put it back and closed his eyes. He'd think about it tomorrow. Tonight, he just needed to get home. The apartment was dark when Adrian unlocked the door. His sister Sarah was asleep on the couch, a textbook open on her chest. She was getting her nursing degree and always studied late. Adrian covered her with a blanket and moved quietly to Leo's room. His son was sprawled across his twin bed like a starfish, his stuffed triceratops clutched to his chest. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed and watched him breathe, this tiny human who trusted him completely. I met someone tonight, Adrian whispered. Someone who thinks I'm worth more than I think I am. I don't know if she's right, but maybe I should find out. Leo shifted in his sleep, mumbling something about chicken nuggets. Adrian smiled, kissed his forehead, and stood to leave. But at the doorway, he paused. On Leo's desk, next to the dinosaur drawings and scattered crayons, was a piece of construction paper with stick figures drawn in marker. 2 figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a crooked sun. The tall figure had a cape. Underneath, in Leo's careful kindergarten handwriting, it said, "My dad is a superhero." Adrian's chest tightened. He wasn't a superhero, he was just a guy trying his best. But maybe for Leo, that was enough. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop being invisible. 3 days later, an email arrived that would change everything. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while Adrian was elbow-deep in a crisis at work. 3 trucks stuck in traffic on I-90, a shipment of medical supplies that needed to reach Milwaukee by noon, and a warehouse manager who'd called in sick for the 3rd time that week. Adrian was coordinating reroutes on two monitors simultaneously, his coffee cold and forgotten, when his phone buzzed with a notification that made his heart stop. From Elena Whitmore. Subject: Opportunity worth discussing. He stared at the sender name for a full 10 seconds, convinced he was hallucinating from exhaustion. Then he clicked it open with trembling fingers. Adrian, I hope this message finds you well. I've spent the past few days looking into your professional background, not because I doubted what you told me at the wedding, but because I wanted to understand the full picture of who you are and what you've accomplished. What I found confirmed my initial assessment. You're someone whose talent far exceeds his current circumstances. I'd like to discuss a position at Whitmore Systems that I believe would be a better fit for your skills. If you're interested, my assistant will coordinate a meeting at your convenience. The position is real, the offer is serious, and you deserve to hear the details before making any decisions. Best regards, Elena. Adrian read it 3 times. Then a fourth. Then he stood up from his desk so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Brooks, you okay? His supervisor, Dale, called from across the cramped office. Yeah, Adrian managed. Yeah, I need 5 minutes. He walked to the break room in a daze, the email still glowing on his phone screen. Elena Whitmore had researched him, had looked into his professional background, had found something worth offering him a position. This didn't happen to people like him. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, in stories, in other people's lives. Not his. Adrian dialed his sister's number with shaking hands. This better be an emergency, Sarah answered groggily. I worked a double shift and I'm trying to sleep before I pick up Leo from school. Elena Whitmore just emailed me. Silence. Then, the billionaire from the wedding? Yes. What did she want? To offer me a job. More silence. Then Sarah's voice came back, sharp and awake now. Say that again slowly. She researched my professional background and she wants to discuss a position at her company. Adrian Michael Brooks, if you are messing with me right now. I'm not. I'm staring at the email right now. He could hear Sarah moving around, probably sitting up in bed. What kind of position? She didn't say, just that it would be a better fit for my skills. And you're calling me instead of immediately responding why exactly? Because this feels insane. Adrian ran his free hand through his hair. Sarah, I talked to her for 1 hour at a wedding. 1 hour. And now she's offering me a job at one of the biggest logistics tech companies in the country? Or, Sarah said calmly, you impress someone who actually has the power to recognize talent when she sees it. You've been wasting away at that company for 5 years, Adrian. Everyone knows you're the reason their operations don't collapse. Maybe it's time someone actually valued that. What if it's too good to be true? What if it's exactly what you deserve? Adrian closed his eyes. I'm scared. I know, but you're also the guy who got divorced, moved back to Chicago with nothing, raised a kid alone, and never once complained about how unfair it was. Sarah's voice softened. You've been surviving, Adrian. Maybe it's time to actually live. What do I say to her? You say yes to the meeting. Then you hear what she has to offer. Then you make a decision based on facts instead of fear. She paused. And Adrian, don't talk yourself out of this before you even try. You do that a lot. I know. So stop. After they hung up, Adrian stood in the break room for a long moment, staring at the peeling linoleum and flickering fluorescent lights. This room had been his reality for 5 years. This building, this job, this endless cycle of solving other people's problems while his own life stayed stuck in place. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time for something different. He opened his email and started typing before he could second-guess himself. Elena, thank you for reaching out. I'd be very interested in discussing this opportunity. Please let me know when works best for your schedule. Adrian. He hit send before he could overthink it. Then he went back to his desk and spent the rest of the day coordinating shipments and pretending his entire world wasn't tilting sideways. Bomb? The response came within an hour. Elena's assistant, a polished woman named Claire, called him directly to schedule a meeting for Thursday at 2 p.m. at Whitmore Systems headquarters, located in one of those gleaming towers overlooking Lake Michigan that Adrian had only ever seen from the outside. Ms. Whitmore has cleared her afternoon for this conversation, Claire said professionally. Please bring any questions you might have about the role or the company. She values thorough discussion. I will, Adrian said, trying to sound like someone who regularly took meetings with billionaire CEOs. Thank you. After he hung up, Dale appeared at his cubicle with a suspicious expression. You've been acting weird all day, Dale said. Something I should know about? Adrian considered lying. Then he considered the fact that he'd been undervalued at this company for half a decade, and Dale had never once fought for him to get a raise or a promotion. I have a job interview Thursday afternoon, Adrian said evenly. I'll need to leave early. Dale's expression shifted from suspicious to alarmed. Interview with who? Does it matter? Brooks, if this is about the promotion that went to Henderson, I told you, it's not about Henderson. Adrian kept his voice level. It's about me realizing I'm worth more than what I'm getting here. You can't just leave. You're integral to our operations. Then maybe you should have made me feel integral before someone else noticed. Dale opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. We can discuss a raise. I'm not negotiating, Dale. I'm informing you that I have an interview. What happens after that is up to me. For the first time in 5 years, Adrian saw something like respect flicker in his supervisor's eyes. Who's the interview with? Dale asked quietly. Someone who sees potential instead of just productivity. And Adrian turned back to his monitors, ending the conversation. Thursday arrived with the kind of Chicago weather that couldn't decide between rain and sleet. Adrian left work at 1:15, ignoring Dale's pointed look, and took the L downtown. He'd borrowed a better suit from Marcus, who'd insisted via text message that this was the most important meeting of your life, do not screw it up, and spent 20 minutes that morning making sure his shoes were actually shined instead of just wiped clean. The Whitmore Systems building was everything Adrian expected, glass and steel, and the kind of modern architecture that screamed money and power. He announced himself to the receptionist, who smiled pleasantly and directed him to the 42nd floor. The elevator ride felt like ascending into another dimension. When the doors opened, Adrian stepped into a reception area that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the lake. The art on the walls was probably worth more than his annual salary, and the furniture looked like it had been crafted by Scandinavian minimalist wizards. Mr. Brooks? He turned to find Claire, mid-40s, perfectly professional, smiling at him. Ms. Whitmore is ready for you. Follow me, please. They walked through an open-plan office where people worked at standing desks with multiple monitors, the energy focused but not frantic. Adrian noticed the details. The employee lounge with a full kitchen, the collaboration spaces with whiteboards covered in diagrams, the casual dress code that suggested comfort over corporate theater. This wasn't just an office. It was a place where people actually wanted to work. Claire stopped at a corner office with glass walls that could be frosted for privacy. Inside, Elena Whitmore stood at her desk, reviewing something on her tablet. She looked up as they approached and smiled. Not the polite CEO smile from the wedding, but something warmer. Adrian, thank you for coming. She gestured to the sitting area by the window. Please, have a seat. Claire, we're good. Hold my calls. Of course. Claire disappeared, closing the door behind her. Adrian sat in a chair that probably cost more than his couch and tried not to look as nervous as he felt. Elena settled across from him, her expression open and attentive. First, she said, thank you for being willing to have this conversation. I know it must feel strange. That's an understatement, Adrian admitted. Good. If you'd walked in here acting like this was normal, I'd have questioned my judgment. Elena leaned forward slightly. I meant what I said in my email, Adrian. I researched your background, and what I found was remarkable. I coordinate logistics for a mid-sized company. That's not exactly remarkable. Let me tell you what I found. Elena picked up a folder from the side table. 3 years ago, your company was hemorrhaging money due to inefficient routing and warehouse placement. You identified the problem, proposed a restructuring plan, and implemented changes that saved the company approximately $4 million annually. Adrian blinked. How did you? I made some calls, spoke to people who know people. Elena's eyes were sharp now. You didn't get a promotion for that work. You didn't even get a raise. Your supervisor took credit for the improvements in his quarterly report. Heat flooded Adrian's face, part embarrassment, part anger. That's just how it works sometimes. It's how it works when talented people let themselves be exploited. Elena's tone wasn't harsh, just honest. 2 years ago, you prevented a major contract loss by personally coordinating an emergency reroute during that blizzard. You worked 72 hours straight to make sure medical supplies reached 3 hospitals. Again, no recognition, no compensation. I was doing my job. You were doing 3 people's jobs, and you were doing them brilliantly. Elena set the folder aside. Adrian, I've built my career on finding people who are capable of extraordinary things but stuck in ordinary circumstances. You are exactly that person. What do you want from me? Adrian asked quietly. I want to offer you a position as Senior Director of Operations. You'd oversee logistics coordination for our entire Midwest region, manage a team of 15, and have direct input on strategic planning. The title alone made Adrian's head spin. I don't have management experience. You've been managing your entire department's incompetence for 5 years. That counts. Elena's expression was serious now. The salary is $180,000 annually, plus performance bonuses, full benefits, and equity options. You'd start in 6 weeks, which gives you time to transition out of your current position properly. Adrian couldn't breathe. $180,000. He currently made $52,000. His voice cracked. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's what you should have been making all along. Elena watched him carefully. I don't make charitable offers, Adrian. This is a business decision. You're worth this to my company because I believe you'll generate value far beyond your salary, but I need to know you believe it too. Why me? Adrian managed. You could hire someone with an MBA from Stanford, someone with a track record at major companies. Why am I even in this room? Elena was quiet for a moment, her gaze drifting to the windows overlooking the lake. Do you know what I noticed about you at the wedding? She finally said. Besides the obvious things I mentioned? No. You were the only person in that entire ballroom who wasn't performing. Everyone else was playing a role. Successful executive, influential investor, important person. But you were just real. You helped people because that's who you are, not because anyone was watching. You felt genuine joy for the couple getting married, even though it reminded you of your own pain. And when I approached you, you didn't try to impress me. You just talked to me like a human being. She turned back to face him. I've spent 10 years in this industry, Adrian. I've met thousands of executives, consultants, and ambitious climbers. Most of them are competent. Some are even talented, but very few of them are authentic. And authenticity, real integrity, is the rarest commodity in business. Integrity doesn't show up on a balance sheet, Adrian said. No, but it shows up in how people lead, in whether teams trust them, in whether they solve problems or just hide them. Elena's voice was firm now. I can teach someone strategy. I can train someone on our systems, but I cannot teach someone to be decent. And you, Adrian Brooks, are fundamentally decent. That's why you're in this room. Adrian felt something crack open inside him, some protective wall he'd built after the divorce, after the years of being overlooked, after convincing himself that mediocrity was the best he could hope for. I have a son, he said quietly. Leo. He's 5. I'm a single parent, which means I can't work 80-hour weeks or travel constantly, or our standard expectation is 45 to 50 hours weekly, Elena interrupted. Travel is occasional, usually planned weeks in advance, and never mandatory if you have conflicts. We offer flexible scheduling for parents, excellent childcare benefits, and a culture that doesn't worship burnout. She paused. I don't want employees who sacrifice their families for my company, Adrian. I want employees who are successful at work and at home. That's not how most companies operate. Most companies have terrible retention rates and mediocre results. I prefer a different approach. Elena stood and walked to the window. Can I tell you something personal? Of course. Before I started this company, I worked for a logistics firm that demanded everything from me. 80-hour weeks, constant travel, no personal life. I was excellent at my job, and they rewarded me with more work and less respect. She turned to face him. One night, I fell asleep at my desk and didn't wake up for 14 hours. When I finally did, my phone had 37 missed calls from my boss, all of them furious that I'd missed a meeting. Not one asked if I was okay. That's awful, Adrian said. It was clarifying, because in that moment, I realized that no company that treated people like machines deserved my loyalty. So I quit, started Whitmore Systems with money I'd saved and a belief that you could build something profitable and humane. She returned to her seat. It's been 10 years. We've never missed a quarter. We've never had an employee die of a heart attack at their desk. I consider that success. Adrian studied her, really studied her. This wasn't just a business pitch. This was a woman who'd built an empire on principles she'd forged in pain. I need to think about this, he said honestly. Not because I'm not interested, because I'd be an idiot to make a decision this big without thinking it through. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. Elena pulled a folder from her desk and handed it to him. This contains everything: full job description, salary breakdown, benefits package, equity details. Review it, ask questions, talk to people you trust. If you want references from current employees, I'll provide them. Take a week. A week? Decisions made under pressure are rarely good decisions. I'd rather you take time to be certain. Elena's smile was gentle now. And Adrian, if you decide this isn't right for you, that's okay. I won't think less of you. This is your life. Your choice. Adrian took the folder with trembling hands. Thank you for this, for seeing something in me that I stopped seeing in myself. You never stopped being worth seeing, Elena said quietly. You just got used to people looking past you. He didn't go back to work after the meeting. Instead, he walked along the Riverwalk for an hour, the folder tucked under his arm, his mind spinning with possibilities and terror in equal measure. $180,000. He could pay off his debt, move to a better apartment, actually save for Leo's future instead of just surviving month to month, stop choosing between groceries and his son's school supplies. But what if he failed? What if Elena was wrong about him? What if he took this job and proved that he was exactly what his current salary suggested? Mediocre, ordinary, worth overlooking? His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Well? She offered me Senior Director of Operations, $180,000 salary. The phone immediately rang. Are you kidding me? Sarah shouted before he could even say hello. I'm not kidding. Adrian, that's insane. That's incredible. Did you accept? I told her I needed a week to think about it. Why would you need a week? The answer is yes. Because what if I'm not good enough? The words tumbled out before he could stop them. What if she's wrong? What if I take this job and prove that I'm exactly the person everyone always thought I was? Someone who peaked early and has nothing left. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Adrian, she finally said, her voice gentle now. Do you remember what happened when Leo was born? What does that have to do with... Just answer the question. Adrian sighed. Jennifer had complications. Preeclampsia. The doctors were worried. I stayed at the hospital for 3 days straight, coordinating with nurses, making sure she had everything she needed, handling all the logistics while she recovered. And when Leo finally came home, Sarah continued, you were terrified you'd be a terrible father. You said you didn't know how to do any of it, that you'd probably break him somehow. I remember. And what actually happened? Adrian smiled despite himself. I figured it out. You didn't just figure it out. You became an incredible father. You learned every single thing you needed to learn because Leo needed you to. Sarah's voice was firm now. You've been underestimating yourself your entire life, Adrian. But the people who actually pay attention, me, Leo, Marcus, and now Elena Whitmore, we see who you really are. Maybe it's time you saw it too. After they hung up, Adrian stood on the Riverwalk watching boats cut through the gray water and thought about courage. Not the loud kind, not the kind that came with fanfare and applause. The quiet kind. The kind that meant looking at an opportunity that terrified you and saying yes anyway. The kind that meant believing you might be worth more than you'd been taught to accept. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos. Leo's gap-toothed grin stared back at him from the screen. Pure trust, pure love, pure belief that his dad could do anything. My dad is a superhero. Adrian took a deep breath. Then he opened his email and started typing. 5 days later, Adrian walked into Dale's office and submitted his 2 weeks' notice. You're making a mistake, Dale said, though his expression suggested he knew it was a lie. Maybe, Adrian replied, but it's my mistake to make. On his last day, his coworkers threw him a small goodbye party in the break room. Grocery store cake and warm soda, the kind of celebration that felt both touching and sad. They'd worked together for years, solved countless problems together, but Adrian realized with sharp clarity that he'd never really known most of them beyond surface level. He'd been invisible even to the people who saw him every day. "Where are you going?" someone asked. "Whitmore Systems." A ripple of recognition went through the room. Everyone knew that name. "Seriously?" Henderson, the guy who'd gotten the promotion that should have been Adrian's, stared at him. "How'd you land that?" "Turns out I'm better at my job than anyone here gave me credit for," Adrian said mildly. Henderson flushed red, and Adrian felt a small, petty satisfaction. Later, as he packed up his desk, 5 years condensed into a single cardboard box, Dale appeared one last time. "I underestimated you," Dale said quietly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." Adrian looked at him. "You know what's worse than being underestimated?" "What?" "Getting used to it." He picked up his box and walked out of the building for the last time, into the autumn sunshine that felt like the beginning of something he couldn't quite name yet. Hope, maybe, or possibility, or just the simple courage to believe he deserved better than he'd been willing to accept. The night before his first day at Whitmore Systems, Adrian couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing through every possible way he could fail, every reason Elena might realize she'd made a mistake. At 2 a.m., he got up and made tea, standing in the kitchen of the apartment he'd soon be able to afford to leave. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Can't sleep?" Adrian stared at it, confused. Then another text came through. "It's Elena. I gave you my personal number in the welcome packet. You probably didn't notice." He scrambled to respond. "How did you know I was awake?" "Because I couldn't sleep before my first real day running this company either. Nerves are normal. They mean you care. What if I'm not ready? No one is ever ready for the things that change their lives. But readiness is overrated. Courage matters more." Adrian smiled in the darkness. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for taking a chance on yourself. That's the harder part. See you tomorrow?" "See you tomorrow." "And Adrian, yes? Stop thinking of me as your boss. Think of me as someone who believes in you until you believe in yourself. That's the real job description." Adrian set down his phone and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. Adrian's first day at Whitmore Systems began with him standing in front of his bathroom mirror at 5:30 in the morning, adjusting his tie for the 7th time while Leo watched from the doorway in his dinosaur pajamas. "You look fancy, Dad," Leo said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume," Adrian admitted, tugging at his collar. "Like a superhero costume?" Adrian knelt down to Leo's level. "More like a please don't let me mess this up costume." Leo considered this with the gravity only a 5-year-old could muster, then wrapped his small arms around Adrian's neck. "You won't mess up. You're really good at stuff." The simple confidence in his son's voice made Adrian's throat tight. "Thanks, buddy. That helps. Can we have pancakes to celebrate?" "It's 5:30 in the morning." "Pancakes don't care about time, Dad." Despite his nerves, Adrian laughed. "You make an excellent point. Let's make pancakes." They stood side by side in the tiny kitchen, Leo on his step stool carefully pouring batter while Adrian flipped, and for those few minutes the weight of the day ahead felt manageable. This was real. Leo's laughter, the smell of cooking batter, the morning light filtering through their apartment window. Everything else was just possibility. Sarah arrived at 6:15 to take Leo to school, her nursing scrubs rumpled from a night shift, but her smile bright. "Look at you," she said, straightening Adrian's tie properly. "Senior director, I'm so proud of you I could cry." "Please don't. If you cry, I'll cry, and I can't show up to my first day with puffy eyes." "Fair point." She squeezed his shoulders. "You've got this, Adrian. Just be yourself. That's who she hired." "What if myself isn't enough?" "Then she's a terrible judge of character, and we both know that's not true." Sarah picked up her bag and Leo's backpack. "Now go show them what invisible talent looks like when someone finally turns on the lights." Whitmore Systems occupied 12 floors of the building, and Adrian's new office was on the 43rd, one floor above where he'd interviewed. When he stepped off the elevator at 7:45, Claire was waiting with a warm smile and a tablet. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks. Welcome to your first day." "Please call me Adrian. Mr. Brooks makes me feel like I should be someone's father." He paused. "I mean, I am someone's father, but you know what I mean." Claire's smile widened. "Adrian it is. Let me show you to your office, and then we'll do a quick orientation before your team meeting at 9. His office wasn't the corner suite Elena occupied, but it was 3 times the size of his cubicle at his old job, with windows overlooking the lake and furniture that looked like it belonged in a design catalog. A nameplate sat on the desk. Adrian Brooks, Senior Director of Operations. He touched it carefully, as if it might disappear. "Whitmore wanted you to have space that reflects your position," Claire said, noticing his expression. "She believes environment affects performance." "It's incredible," Adrian said quietly. "I've never had an office before." "Well, now you do. And there's a team of 15 people downstairs who are very curious about the man who was personally recruited by the CEO. Claire handed him the tablet. "Your schedule is here. Team introductions at 9, systems training at 10:30, lunch with Ms. Whitmore at noon, and departmental overview at 2. Tomorrow, we'll dive into current projects." "Lunch with Elena?" Adrian's voice cracked slightly. "She makes a point of having lunch with new senior hires on their first day. She says it sets the tone." Claire paused. "Between you and me, she doesn't do this for everyone. You're already being watched with significant interest." "That's not terrifying at all," Claire laughed. "You'll be fine. Just remember, half of the executives in this building started somewhere else, feeling exactly how you feel right now. The difference is they stopped doubting themselves long enough to succeed." The team meeting was held in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough technology to run a small country. Adrian's 15 direct reports filed in, a mix of ages, backgrounds, and expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. Adrian stood at the head of the table, his hands only slightly trembling. "Good morning," he began. "I'm Adrian Brooks, and I know you're all wondering who I am and why I'm here instead of someone with an MBA from Harvard or 10 years at Amazon." A few people shifted in their seats. One woman, mid-30s, sharp eyes, leaned back with crossed arms. "The honest answer is, I don't entirely know why I'm here either," Adrian continued. "What I do know is that I've spent the last 5 years coordinating logistics for a company that never recognized my work, solving problems nobody thanked me for, and watching incompetent people get promoted while I stayed invisible." The sharp-eyed woman's expression shifted slightly, still guarded, but listening now. "Elena Whitmore saw something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. She took a chance on someone without fancy credentials or a powerful network, and I intend to prove that instinct right." Adrian met each person's eyes. "I don't know all your systems yet. I don't know your internal politics or your unwritten rules. But I know operations, I know problem solving, and I know how to make things work better than they did before." He paused, letting the words settle. "I'm not here to impress you with my resume. I'm here to work with you to make this department even better than it already is. So I have one question. Are you willing to give me a chance to earn your respect?" Silence hung in the room for a long moment. Then a younger man, maybe 25, with trendy glasses, spoke up. "What was your biggest operational failure?" Adrian didn't hesitate. 3 years ago, I misread a weather forecast and rerouted trucks directly into a blizzard. It cost my company $80,000 and delayed critical shipments by 2 days. I spent 72 hours straight fixing the mess I created, and I've never made that mistake again." "You admitted fault publicly?" the sharp-eyed woman asked. "Of course. My team couldn't learn from the mistake if I pretended it didn't happen." She uncrossed her arms. "I'm Jennifer Chen, Senior Logistics Coordinator. I've been here 6 years, and I've watched 3 directors come through this role. 2 of them blamed their teams for every failure and took credit for every success." "I'm not interested in blame," Adrian said. "I'm interested in solutions." Jennifer studied him for another moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll give you a chance, but I'm watching." I'd expect nothing less. The rest of the meeting went smoother after that. His team walked him through current projects, a routing optimization initiative, a warehouse efficiency study, several client implementations in various stages. Adrian took notes, asked questions, and felt the old familiar rhythm of operational thinking kick in. This was what he was good at: finding the gaps, seeing the patterns, understanding how the pieces fit together. By the time the meeting ended, he'd earned cautious respect from most of the team and outright skepticism from two. Jennifer Chen had offered to walk him through the database systems personally, which felt like a small victory. "You handled that well," Claire said when he returned to his office. "Jennifer doesn't warm up to people easily." "She reminds me of myself," Adrian said. "Competent, undervalued, and tired of incompetent leadership." "That's perceptive. It's survival. You learn to recognize your own kind." Lunch with Elena happened in a private dining room on the executive floor, less formal than Adrian expected, with sandwiches from a local deli and bottled water instead of champagne and caviar. "I hate corporate lunch theater," Elena said, gesturing for him to sit. "All that performance around food nobody actually wants to eat." This felt more honest. "It's perfect," Adrian said, and meant it. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Elena spoke again. "How was your morning?" "Intense. Jennifer Chen is either going to be my strongest ally or my biggest challenge." "She'll be both," Elena said with a slight smile. "Jennifer is brilliant and knows it. She's been passed over for promotion twice because she doesn't perform gratitude well enough for senior leadership's taste." "That's ridiculous." "I agree, which is why I'm hoping you'll see her value and advocate for her advancement." Elena took a sip of water. "I brought you in partially to shake up the internal politics. Some of my executives have gotten comfortable rewarding charm over competence." "You want me to make enemies on my first week?" "I want you to make the right decisions regardless of politics." "That's different." Elena's gaze was steady. "You weren't hired to maintain the status quo, Adrian. You were hired to make things better, even when better is uncomfortable." Adrian felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. "What if I make the wrong call?" "Then we'll fix it together. I don't expect perfection. I expect honest effort and growth." She paused. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "How's Leo handling the transition?" The question surprised him. "He's fine." "Excited that I'm less stressed." "He doesn't really understand what changed, just that I'm happier." "Kids are perceptive that way." Elena's expression softened. "My father worked 3 jobs to keep our family afloat when I was young. I remember the exhaustion in his eyes more clearly than I remember most of my childhood. When things finally stabilized, it was like getting a different person back." "I didn't know that about your background." "Most people don't. The media prefers the narrative of the tech prodigy who built an empire from nothing. It's less compelling to say I built an empire because I watched my father kill himself working for people who didn't value him." She met Adrian's eyes. "That's why I care about this. Not just the business, but the people. Because I remember what it's like to be invisible." Adrian's throat tightened. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being worth seeing." They finished lunch talking about Chicago neighborhoods, good schools for Leo, the best pizza in the city. Normal things that made Adrian feel less like an employee and more like someone who mattered. As they stood to leave, Elena paused at the door. "Adrian, there's something else I need to tell you." His stomach dropped. "Okay." "Some of the executives are questioning my decision to bring you in at this level. They think it's favoritism or impulsive hiring. They're waiting for you to fail so they can say, 'I made a mistake.'" "That's encouraging. I'm telling you because I want you to understand the landscape. You'll need to prove yourself faster and more thoroughly than someone who came in through traditional channels." Elena's voice was firm now. "But I believe you can do it. The question is whether you believe it." Adrian thought about Leo's gap-toothed grin, Sarah's unwavering support, the years of being overlooked and undervalued. He thought about the choice between playing it safe and taking the risk of being seen. "I believe I can try," he said, "and I believe trying is enough to start." Elena smiled. "Then let's see what happens when invisible talent finally gets a spotlight." The first month was brutal. Not because the work was harder than Adrian expected, it was exactly as complex and demanding as he'd anticipated. But because every decision he made was scrutinized, every meeting analyzed, every small mistake magnified by people looking for proof that Elena had made a hiring error. He restructured the routing protocols for the Midwest region and saved the company $90,000 in the first 2 weeks. 3 executives questioned whether the savings were real or just accounting tricks. He identified a major inefficiency in warehouse staffing that was costing them productivity. 2 department heads accused him of overstepping his authority. He worked 60-hour weeks trying to prove his worth, coming home exhausted to Leo's questions about why Daddy was always tired now. "I thought the new job was supposed to be better," Leo said one night, his small face worried. Adrian pulled him into a hug. "It is better, buddy. I'm just working really hard to show everyone I deserve to be there." "But Ms. Elena already knows you deserve it. She picked you." The simple logic of a 5-year-old cut through Adrian's anxiety like a knife. "You're right," Adrian said quietly. "She did pick me. Maybe I should trust that." That conversation changed something. Adrian stopped trying to prove himself to people who'd already decided to doubt him. Instead, he focused on doing the work well and supporting his team effectively. Jennifer Chen became his unexpected ally. She'd watched him handle criticism with grace, admit mistakes openly, and give credit to team members for their contributions. One afternoon, she appeared at his office door with coffee and blunt honesty. "You're nothing like the other directors," she said, sitting down without invitation. "Is that good or bad?" "Good. The last guy took credit for my routing algorithm and got promoted. You put my name on the proposal and recommended me for lead coordinator." Jennifer's voice was carefully neutral. "Why?" "Because you did the work," Adrian said simply. "Why would I take credit for something you created?" "Because that's how corporate advancement works. You leverage other people's success. Then corporate advancement is broken." Adrian met her eyes. "I'm not interested in climbing over people, Jennifer. I'm interested in building something that works. And I can't do that without people like you feeling valued." She stared at him for a long moment. "You're either the most decent person I've met in this industry, or you're playing a very long game." "Why can't it be both?" Jennifer laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd heard from her. "Okay, I'm in. Whatever you're building here, I want to be part of it. Well, even though some executives think I'm going to fail spectacularly, especially because of that, watching you succeed will be the most satisfying thing I've seen in years." 6 weeks into the job, Adrian was called into an executive meeting he hadn't been warned about. He walked into the conference room to find Elena at the head of the table, flanked by 5 senior executives, all men in expensive suits with expressions ranging from neutral to hostile. "Adrian, thank you for joining us," Elena said calmly. "We're reviewing quarterly performance metrics. I thought you should be here since operations is a significant focus." Adrian sat in the only empty chair, his instincts screaming that this was a setup. A man with silver hair and a Rolex that probably cost more than Adrian's car spoke first. "We've been reviewing the operational changes implemented since Mr. Brooks joined the company. While some metrics show improvement, others raise concerns about long-term sustainability." "Which metrics specifically?" Adrian asked evenly. "The routing restructure shows cost savings, but we're seeing increased complexity in implementation. Some of our partners are struggling with the new protocols." "That's accurate," Adrian acknowledged. "Change always involves a learning curve. But the data shows that after the initial 2-week adjustment, partner compliance improved by 38% and error rates dropped by 22%. Another executive, younger, with the kind of confidence that came from inherited wealth, leaned forward. "The question isn't whether there's improvement. It's whether the improvement justifies the disruption of bringing in someone with limited corporate experience at this level." There it was, the real agenda. "Let me be clear," Adrian said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "You're not questioning the metrics. You're questioning whether I deserve to be in this room. That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Adrian looked at each executive in turn. "I've spent 6 weeks proving my competence through results. I've saved this company over $200,000, improved efficiency across 3 departments, and built stronger relationships with partners than existed before. But none of that matters to you because I don't have the right pedigree." The silver-haired executive's face reddened. "Young man, you're out of line." "No, Robert, he's exactly on line," Elena interrupted, her voice cutting through the tension like steel. "Which is why I brought him into this meeting. I wanted Adrian to see exactly what I deal with from leadership that values credentials over results." The room went silent. Elena stood, her presence commanding every inch of space. "Adrian has delivered more measurable value in 6 weeks than some of you have delivered in 6 months. But instead of acknowledging that, you're questioning my judgment in hiring him. She placed her hands on the table, leaning forward. Let me make something absolutely clear. I don't answer to you about hiring decisions. You answer to me about departmental performance. And if you spend more energy undermining my choices than doing your own jobs, we'll need to have a very different conversation about who belongs in this room. The hostile executive opened his mouth, then closed it. Are we clear? Elena asked. Reluctant nods around the table. Good. This meeting is over. Elena gathered her tablet. Adrian, stay behind, please. The executives filed out, Robert shooting Adrian a look that promised future trouble. When the door closed, Elena sat back down with a heavy sigh. I'm sorry you had to experience that. Was that a test? Adrian asked. For them, not for you. I needed to see who would focus on your results and who would focus on their ego. Elena's expression was tired now, the CEO mask slipping to reveal the exhaustion beneath. Robert has been trying to undermine my authority for 2 years. He thinks because he's been here since the beginning, he should have more control. What are you going to do about him? Watch him carefully, document everything, and when he inevitably crosses a line I can't ignore, I'll remove him. She looked at Adrian. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm exhausted. Not from the work, from the politics. I know, and I'm sorry I brought you into this environment without fully preparing you for how hostile some people would be. Elena's voice softened. You can walk away, Adrian. If this isn't what you signed up for, I'll understand. No judgment, no hard feelings. Adrian thought about it, really thought about it. He thought about his cramped apartment, Leo's drawings on the fridge, the years of being invisible. He thought about Jennifer Chen's cautious trust, his team's growing respect, the satisfaction of solving complex problems. He thought about who he'd been at that wedding, a ghost watching life happen to other people, and who he was becoming now, someone willing to fight for the space he occupied. I'm not walking away, Adrian said firmly, but I need to know something. What? Did you hire me because you actually believe in my abilities, or because you needed someone to shake up the executive dynamics? Elena met his eyes without hesitation. Both. I believe you're genuinely talented, but I also believe that talent is wasted if it's surrounded by mediocrity and politics. You're not here to play their games, Adrian. You're here to change the game entirely. That's a lot of pressure. It is, but I think you can handle it. She paused. Can I tell you what I really saw at that wedding? Please. I saw someone who'd been knocked down by life and was still standing, still showing up, still being kind when kindness wasn't rewarded. That's not just talent, Adrian. That's character. And character is what survives when everything else falls apart. Adrian's throat tightened. I'm scared I'll let you down. Then you'll be in good company. I'm scared of that too. Elena smiled faintly. But fear doesn't mean we stop trying. It just means we care about the outcome. That evening, Adrian picked up Leo from after-school care and took him to Navy Pier, something they hadn't done in months because Adrian had always been too tired or too broke or too defeated. They rode the Ferris wheel as the sun set over the lake, Leo's face pressed against the window as the city lights began to glow. This is the best day ever, Leo declared. Yeah? Adrian pulled him close. Why? Because you're happy again, Dad. You smile different now. Adrian hadn't realized how much his sadness had shown, how much his son had been carrying the weight of his father's defeat. I'm trying, buddy, trying to build us a better life. I like our life now, Leo said simply, but I like when you're not sad more. When they got home, Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from Elena. There's something I need to show you tomorrow. Can you come to my office at 8 before the day starts? Of course. Everything okay? Everything's fine. I just want you to understand the full picture of what you're part of. Adrian stared at the message, curiosity and apprehension warring in his chest. Whatever tomorrow brought, he'd face it. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving, he was building something. And that made all the difference. Adrian arrived at Elena's office at 7:50 the next morning, coffee in hand and curiosity gnawing at him. The executive floor was nearly empty at this hour, just the hum of climate control and the early risers who believed in getting ahead of the day. Elena was already at her desk, surrounded by what looked like architectural plans and financial reports. She glanced up when he knocked, and something in her expression made him pause, vulnerability maybe, or the kind of weariness that came from carrying decisions too heavy to share. "Come in," she said, clearing space on her desk. "Coffee?" "Already have some, thanks." Adrian sat across from her, studying the plans. "What am I looking at?" "The future, hopefully." Elena turned one of the documents so he could see it properly. "I'm planning a major expansion, 3 new distribution centers across the Midwest, integration of AI-driven routing systems, and a partnership program with smaller logistics companies to create a cooperative network instead of crushing competition." Adrian's eyes widened as he scanned the numbers. "This is massive. This could reshape the entire regional supply chain." "That's the idea, but it's also risky. Initial investment is $40 million, and there's no guarantee the partnership model will work. Most companies in our position consolidate power. I want to distribute it." Elena leaned back in her chair. "I'm telling you this because I need someone I trust in a key operational role for this expansion. Someone who understands that business doesn't have to be ruthless to be successful." "You want me involved in this?" "I want you leading the operational implementation. Jennifer Chen would handle logistics coordination, but you'd oversee the entire structural build-out." Elena's gaze was steady. "This is bigger than your current role. It's a chance to shape something from the ground up. But it also means more scrutiny, more pressure, and definitely more people waiting for you to fail." Adrian set down his coffee, his mind racing. 3 months ago, he'd been coordinating truck routes from a cubicle. Now he was being offered a chance to architect a regional transformation. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "You have executives with decades of experience." "Because those executives think in terms of market domination and profit maximization. You think in terms of systems that work for everyone involved." Elena pulled out another document, a proposal with Adrian's name on it. "I read your routing restructure proposal. You didn't just optimize for speed or cost. You optimized for driver well-being, environmental impact, and partner sustainability. That's the kind of thinking this expansion needs." "I didn't know you read that proposal." "I read everything that crosses my desk, especially when it comes from people who are trying to change how things work." She paused. "There's something else you should know. If this expansion succeeds, you'd be positioned for VP of Operations within 2 years. If it fails, we both take the hit." Adrian absorbed this. VP of Operations. 2 years ago, he'd been praying he could make rent. "What happens if I say no?" "Then I find someone else, and you continue doing excellent work in your current role. No judgment, no repercussions. This is an opportunity, not an obligation." Elena's voice softened. "But I think you're capable of more than you realize, Adrian, and I think you're finally starting to believe it too." He thought about Leo's art exhibition happening next week at his school. He'd promised to be there, promised that the new job wouldn't mean missing the important moments. This expansion would demand everything he had. "Can I think about it?" Adrian asked. "Of course. Take a week. Talk to people you trust. Run the numbers yourself. I'll have Claire send you the full financial projections." Elena stood and walked to the window overlooking the lake. "Just know that I wouldn't be offering this if I didn't genuinely believe you could do it. I don't gamble with $40 million on people I'm not certain about." That's simultaneously reassuring and terrifying. Elena smiled. "Welcome to leadership. It never stops feeling like that." Adrian spent the next 3 days buried in financial models, operational projections, and conversations with Jennifer Chen about the feasibility of the expansion timeline. The more he studied it, the more brilliant and risky it became. Elena wasn't just planning a business expansion, she was trying to prove that capitalism could be cooperative instead of predatory. "This is either genius or commercial suicide," Jennifer said, reviewing the partnership structure. "You're essentially helping potential competitors get stronger, or creating a network where everyone succeeds together instead of fighting over scraps," Adrian countered. "What if the competition model is the problem?" Jennifer looked at him with something like wonder. "You really believe that?" "I've been competing my whole life and it got me nowhere. Maybe cooperation is worth trying." On Thursday evening, Adrian left work early for the first time since starting at Whitmore Systems. He'd promised Leo he'd be at the school art exhibition, and he wasn't going to break that promise. Not for expansion plans, not for executive politics, not for anything. The elementary school gym was decorated with colorful paper chains and student artwork covering every available wall. Parents milled around with cheap wine and cookies, their phones out to capture their children's masterpieces. Adrian spotted Leo immediately, standing proudly beside a painting of what appeared to be a family of dinosaurs having a picnic. "Dad!" Leo ran over and grabbed his hand. "You came! I didn't think you'd come because of your important job." The words hit Adrian like a punch to the chest. His son had doubted he'd show up. "Buddy, I will always come to things like this. The job is important, but you're more important." "Really?" "Really. Now show me this masterpiece." Leo dragged him over to the painting, explaining in elaborate detail the story behind each dinosaur, their names, their favorite foods, their jobs. The largest dinosaur, wearing what looked like a tie made of green paint, was labeled "My Dad" in shaky letters. "That's me?" Adrian asked, his throat tight. "Yeah, you're a Brachiosaurus because they're really tall and strong, and they protect their families." Adrian knelt down and pulled Leo into a fierce hug, not caring that he was wrinkling his work suit or that other parents were watching. His son saw him as strong, as a protector. Despite everything Adrian thought he'd failed at, Leo still believed in him. "I love it, Leo. It's the best painting I've ever seen." "Better than the art at your fancy office?" "A million times better." They were standing there, admiring the dinosaur family, when Adrian heard a familiar voice behind him. "The perspective onto the clouds is particularly impressive." He turned to find Elena Whitmore standing in the elementary school gym, looking entirely out of place in a tailored blazer among the crowd of parents in casual wear. Several people had already recognized her, whispering and pointing. "Elena?" Adrian's surprise was complete. "What are you doing here?" "You mentioned Leo's art exhibition. I hope it's all right that I came. I've always believed that understanding someone's whole life makes you a better colleague." Her eyes moved to the painting. "And this must be the famous Leo." Leo stared at her with the unfiltered curiosity of a 5-year-old. "Are you Dad's boss?" "I'm your dad's colleague," Elena corrected gently. "We work together." "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I think they're fascinating, especially Brachiosauruses." Leo's face lit up. "That's my dad. He's a Brachiosaurus because he's strong and protective." Elena glanced at Adrian, and something shifted in her expression, something warm and genuine that had nothing to do with business or professional respect. "That's a very accurate assessment," she said quietly. They walked through the exhibition together, Leo providing enthusiastic commentary on every piece of art, while other parents watched with barely concealed curiosity. Adrian was acutely aware of how surreal this was. A billionaire CEO spending her Thursday evening in an elementary school gym, genuinely listening to a 5-year-old explain why his friend's painting of a robot was scientifically inaccurate. "Robots don't have hearts," Leo explained seriously. "They have circuits. Everybody knows that." "Some people would argue that's what makes them interesting," Elena said. "They can be caring and helpful without having a heart. That means they choose to be good." Leo considered this with the gravity of a philosopher. "I guess that makes sense, like how some people are nice even when they don't have to be." Exactly like that. Adrian watched this exchange with something unfurling in his chest, something that felt dangerous and hopeful and terrifying all at once. This wasn't his boss doing employee relations. This was a woman who'd chosen to spend her evening here, in this place that mattered to him, connecting with his son like it was the most natural thing in the world. After the exhibition, as parents began herding tired children toward the exits, Elena walked with them to the parking lot. Leo was between them, holding both their hands and swinging dramatically. "Thank you for coming," Adrian said as they reached Elena's car. A surprisingly modest Tesla, not the luxury vehicle he'd expected. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to, and I'm glad I did." Elena looked down at Leo. "It was a pleasure to meet you. You're a very talented artist." "Thanks. Are you going to come to my soccer game next week?" "Leo," Adrian started, embarrassed. "I'd love to," Elena said, cutting him off. "If that's all right with your dad." Adrian stared at her. "You don't have to." "I know, but I'd like to, if the invitation stands." Leo jumped up and down. "Yes, we play at 10 on Saturday." "Dad, can she come, please?" Caught between his son's excitement and Elena's genuine expression, Adrian found himself nodding. Of course, if you really want to watch 5-year-olds chase a soccer ball in chaotic circles. Sounds perfect. Elena unlocked her car. Adrian, have you thought more about the expansion proposal? I have. I'm still running scenarios, but I'm leaning toward yes. Something flickered in Elena's eyes. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction. Good. Take your time. Just know that if you decide to do this, you'll have my complete support. Whatever you need. After she drove away, Leo tugged on Adrian's sleeve. Dad, is Ms. Elena nice? Very nice. Is she pretty? Adrian's heart skipped. Why are you asking that? Because you smile different when you look at her, like the way Prince Charming smiles at Cinderella in the movie. We're colleagues, buddy, just colleagues. But as they drove home, Adrian couldn't shake Leo's observation, or the way his chest had tightened when Elena knelt down to Leo's level, treating a 5-year-old's opinions about dinosaurs with the same seriousness she brought to board meetings, or the fact that she'd spent her Thursday evening in an elementary school gym because it mattered to him. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of Chicago weather that couldn't decide between spring and winter. Adrian stood on the sideline of a muddy soccer field watching Leo chase the ball with 7 other kindergartners who had no concept of positions or strategy. Elena arrived at 10:15 wearing jeans and a Whitmore Systems hoodie, the most casual Adrian had ever seen her. Several other parents noticed her immediately, the whispers starting up like a wave. Is that Elena Whitmore? What is she doing here? She must be worth billions. Elena ignored them entirely, walking straight to Adrian with 2 coffees from the good place near her apartment. Peace offering for being late, she said, handing him one. Traffic on Lake Shore was brutal. You didn't have to come, Adrian said, though he was undeniably glad she had. I wanted to. Besides, I've never actually watched a kid's soccer game. I'm curious how chaotic it actually gets. As if on cue, Leo's team scored a goal on their own net. Half the kids celebrated anyway, and the referee looked like he was reconsidering his life choices. Elena laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that made several nearby parents turn and stare. That's pretty chaotic, she admitted. They stood side by side on the sideline, cheering when Leo touched the ball, wincing when kids collided, and slowly relaxing into a comfortable silence that felt nothing like boss and employee, and everything like something Adrian couldn't quite name yet. Can I tell you something? Elena said during halftime, her eyes on the field. Of course. I haven't had a normal Saturday morning in 3 years. Every weekend is networking events, charity galas, investor meetings. Things that matter for business but feel utterly empty. She glanced at him. This feels real. Thank you for letting me be part of it. You don't have to thank me for coming to a soccer game. I'm not thanking you for the game. I'm thanking you for treating me like a person instead of a position. Adrian met her eyes, and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, or a recognition of shared loneliness. You've never been just a position to me, he said quietly. I know. That's why I keep showing up. The referee's whistle blew, saving Adrian from having to figure out what to say next. The second half was even more chaotic than the first, ending in a 4-4 tie that both teams celebrated as a victory. Leo ran off the field covered in mud and grinning like he'd won the World Cup. Did you see my goal? He shouted. I saw it, buddy. You were amazing. Miss Elena, did you see? I saw. That was impressive footwork. Leo beamed, then looked between them with the calculating expression of a child who'd just had an idea. Can Miss Elena come to lunch with us? We always get pizza after games. Adrian's stomach dropped. Leo, Ms. Elena probably has plans. I don't, actually, Elena said. Pizza sounds perfect. Husman. They ended up at a family-owned pizzeria in Lincoln Park, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and a jukebox playing Sinatra. Leo ordered his usual, cheese pizza and chocolate milk, while chattering nonstop about soccer, dinosaurs, and his friend Tyler, who could burp the alphabet. Elena listened with genuine interest, asking questions and responding to Leo's tangents with the kind of attention most adults didn't give children. Tyler can really burp the whole alphabet? She asked seriously. Yeah, well, sometimes he gets stuck on cue, but he's working on it. That's dedication to his craft. Adrian watched them interact and felt something shift irrevocably inside him. This wasn't networking. This wasn't professional courtesy. This was Elena choosing to spend her Saturday with them because she wanted to be here. After Leo excused himself to play the ancient arcade game in the corner, Elena turned to Adrian with a soft expression. He's wonderful. You've done an incredible job raising him. I've just tried not to screw him up too badly. You've done more than that. He's confident, kind, curious. Those things don't happen by accident. She paused. Can I ask you something personal? At this point, I think we're past professional boundaries. Elena smiled. Do you ever regret how things turned out? The divorce, the struggles, all of it? Adrian considered the question carefully. I regret that I couldn't be what Jennifer needed. I regret that Leo doesn't have both parents in the same house. But regret the journey that got me here? He looked at Leo, who was triumphantly beating the high score on a game from 1987. No, because all of that made me into someone who could be a good father, someone who values what matters. What matters to you? This, right here. Leo being happy, me being present for him, building a life that's about more than just surviving. Adrian met her eyes. What about you? What matters to you? Elena was quiet for a long moment, watching Leo through the window. Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. I've spent so long building the company, proving myself, fighting to maintain control. I haven't stopped to think about what comes after success. She turned back to him. But days like today feel like an answer, not business or money or power, just connection with people who are real. You're real too, Elena. Not just the CEO, the person. I'm starting to remember that. Because of you. Before Adrian could respond, Leo came bounding back to the table, declaring he was now the pizza champion of Lincoln Park, and demanding they celebrate with ice cream. Elena agreed immediately, and they ended up walking through the park with cones from the vendor cart, Leo running ahead to chase pigeons while Adrian and Elena followed at a slower pace. I've made a decision about the expansion, Adrian said suddenly. Elena stopped walking. And? I'm in. Completely. I want to help build this. Relief and joy crossed Elena's face in equal measure. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm also tired of playing it safe. You took a chance on me when no one else would. Now I want to take a chance on something bigger than myself. Elena's smile was radiant. We're going to change everything, Adrian, together. No pressure. Enormous pressure. But I think we can handle it. They stood there in the spring sunlight, watching Leo feed breadcrumbs to aggressive pigeons, and Adrian felt the weight of the decision settle into certainty. This was right. Scary and risky and overwhelming, but right. Thank you for today, Elena said softly, for letting me be part of your world. Thank you for wanting to be part of it. Leo came running back, breathless and happy. Dad, Miss Elena, can we do this every Saturday? Adrian glanced at Elena, expecting her to make a polite excuse. Instead, she smiled. I'd like that very much. And in that moment, standing in a Chicago park with mud-stained soccer cleats and melting ice cream, Adrian understood with sudden clarity that something profound was happening between them. Something that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with two people who'd been invisible for too long finally being seen. The expansion project launched 2 weeks later with a press conference that positioned Whitmore Systems as pioneers of cooperative commerce. Adrian stood at the back of the room while Elena fielded questions from reporters, explaining the partnership model with the kind of passionate clarity that had built her empire. We're proving that business doesn't have to be zero-sum, she said into the microphone. That helping others succeed doesn't diminish our own success. This expansion will create jobs, strengthen communities, and demonstrate that profit and purpose can coexist. Robert, the hostile executive from the earlier meeting, stood near Adrian with his arms crossed. She's betting the company on idealism, he muttered. It's going to fail spectacularly. Or it's going to change the industry, Adrian countered quietly. Either way, at least she's trying something that matters. Robert snorted. You're as naive as she is. Maybe, but I'd rather be naive and trying than cynical and stagnant. Over the next 2 months, Adrian worked longer hours than he ever had, but this time it felt different. He wasn't working to prove himself or avoid failure. He was working to build something he believed in. Jennifer Chen led the logistics team with fierce competence. His other team members stepped up beyond his expectations, and slowly, incrementally, the expansion began to take shape. The first distribution center broke ground in Indianapolis. Partnership agreements were signed with 12 smaller logistics companies. The AI routing system went into beta testing, and through it all, Elena was there. Not micromanaging, but supporting. Asking smart questions, removing obstacles, trusting Adrian's judgment even when others questioned it. They fell into a rhythm of late-night work sessions in her office, reviewing projections over takeout food and strong coffee. Sometimes they talked about business. Sometimes they talked about everything else. Childhood memories, favorite books, the fear of failure, the weight of responsibility. One night, 3 months into the expansion, Adrian looked up from his laptop to find Elena watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What?" he asked. "I was just thinking about that wedding, how I almost didn't approach you." "Why did you?" "Because you look like someone who needed to be reminded that he mattered, and I looked like someone who needed to remember what mattering actually meant." She smiled. "I think we both found what we were looking for." "I found more than I was looking for," Adrian said quietly. "So did I." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication neither of them was quite ready to name. Adrian's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. A text from Sarah. "Leo's asking when you'll be home. He misses you." Guilt flooded through him. He'd been so consumed with the expansion that he'd missed 2 bedtimes this week. "I have to go," he said, standing abruptly. "Leo needs me." "Of course, go. We can finish this tomorrow." As Adrian gathered his things, Elena stood too. "Adrian? You're an incredible father. Don't let this project make you forget that." "I'm trying to balance both." "I know. And you're doing better than you think." She touched his arm briefly. "See you tomorrow." He drove home through empty Chicago streets, his mind tangled with spreadsheets and partnership agreements, and the way Elena's hand had felt on his arm, brief and warm, and somehow meaning everything. When he got home, Leo was still awake, fighting sleep to wait for him. "Hey, buddy," Adrian whispered, sitting on the edge of Leo's bed. "You should be asleep. I wanted to say goodnight to you for real." Leo's voice was small. "You work a lot now." "I know, I'm sorry." "It's okay. Sarah said you're building something important." "I am. But you're more important, always." Adrian smoothed Leo's hair back. "How about this weekend? Just you and me. No work, no phone calls. What do you want to do?" "Can we go to the museum? The dinosaur one?" "The Field Museum, absolutely." Leo's smile was sleepy and content. "Will Ms. Elena come too?" The question shouldn't have surprised Adrian, but it did. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you're happier when she's around, and she's nice, and she likes dinosaurs." Out of the mouths of children came uncomfortable truths. "Would you want her to come?" "Yeah, she's fun, and she makes you smile the way you used to smile before Mom left." Adrian's heart clenched. He hadn't realized Leo remembered him being different before the divorce. "I'll ask her," Adrian said. "But no promises, okay? She's very busy." "Okay," Leo yawned. "Dad, I'm glad you're not invisible anymore." "What do you mean?" "Sarah said you used to be invisible at work, but now people see you. I'm glad they finally noticed you're special." Adrian kissed his son's forehead, his eyes burning. "Thank you, buddy. Now sleep. Dream about dinosaurs." As he left Leo's room, Adrian pulled out his phone and stared at Elena's contact information for a long moment. Then he typed out a message before he could overthink it. "Leo wants to know if you'd like to join us at the Field Museum this Saturday. No pressure, but he thinks you'd appreciate the Brachiosaurus exhibit." The response came within minutes. "I'd love to. I haven't been to the Field Museum in years. It's a date. Well, not a date, just a museum visit with a 5-year-old guide. Whatever we call it, I'm looking forward to it." Adrian set down his phone and stood in his small apartment, surrounded by Leo's toys and the life he'd rebuilt from nothing, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just hope. Joy. The simple, uncomplicated joy of knowing that tomorrow would be better than yesterday, and that he wasn't walking toward it alone. Saturday at the Field Museum began with Leo practically vibrating with excitement in the back seat of Adrian's car, asking for the 15th time if Miss Selena was really coming and if she knew that Sue the T-Rex was the most complete skeleton ever found. Yes, she's really coming, and I'm sure she'll be fascinated by your dinosaur facts, Adrian said, pulling into the museum parking lot. Elena was already waiting by the entrance, wearing jeans and a light jacket, her hair down instead of pulled back in the professional knot he was used to. She looked younger like this, more relaxed, and when she smiled at them approaching, Adrian felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. "Leo, ready for the dinosaur expedition?" she called out. "Miss Elena!" Leo broke free from Adrian's hand and ran to her. "Did you know that the Brachiosaurus wasn't actually the biggest dinosaur? That's a common misconception." "I did not know that. Please tell me everything." As they walked through the museum halls, Leo narrated with the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old paleontologist, and Elena listened like he was delivering a doctoral dissertation. Adrian hung back slightly, watching them together. This woman who commanded boardrooms and built empires, kneeling down to Leo's level to examine a fossil display with genuine interest. Other visitors recognized her, some doing double takes, a few attempting to approach for photos. Elena politely declined each time, keeping her attention on Leo, and Adrian realized with sudden clarity that she wasn't here for publicity or networking. She was here because she wanted to be. They spent 3 hours exploring exhibits, eating overpriced museum pizza, and watching Leo explain the Cretaceous period to anyone who would listen. At one point, in the Hall of Gems, while Leo was distracted by a massive meteorite, Elena stood beside Adrian in front of a display of uncut diamonds. "Thank you for inviting me," she said quietly. "I needed this more than I realized." "Needed what? Dinosaurs and pizza?" "Normalcy. A reminder that there's life outside of quarterly reports and expansion strategies." She glanced at him. "A reminder of what actually matters." Adrian turned to face her fully, the museum crowd flowing around them like water around stones. "Elena, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "What are we doing here? Not at the museum? I mean, what is this?" He gestured between them. "Because it started as professional, but it doesn't feel professional anymore. And I need to know if I'm imagining that or if you feel it too." Elena's breath caught visibly. For a moment, the CEO mask slipped entirely, leaving just the woman underneath, uncertain and hopeful and scared. "You're not imagining it," she said. "I've been trying to tell myself this was just mentorship or friendship or appropriate professional boundaries. But the truth is, I think about you constantly. Your integrity, your kindness, the way you love your son. The way you make me feel like I'm more than just the company I built." "Elena, let me finish." Her voice was steady now, determined. "I know the optics are complicated. I'm your boss. There's a power dynamic. People will talk. But I also know that what I feel when I'm with you is the most real thing I've experienced in years. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise." Adrian's heart hammered against his ribs. "I feel the same way. But I'm terrified of what it means. For Leo, for my job, for everything I've built here." "I know. I'm terrified too." Elena's eyes held his. "But I'm more terrified of walking away from something genuine because of fear. I've spent my whole life being careful, being strategic, making the safe choice. And it's given me everything except the one thing I actually want." "What do you want?" "You. This. A life that's about more than just success." She took a breath. "But only if you want it too. And only if we can figure out how to do this in a way that protects Leo and respects your position at the company. I won't risk either of those things, Adrian, not even for this." Before Adrian could respond, Leo came running back, grabbing both their hands. "Come see the meteorite. It's from space. Actual space." They let him pull them forward, the conversation suspended but not forgotten, hanging in the air between them like a promise waiting to be kept. The following week, Adrian requested a meeting with HR to discuss the company's policies on workplace relationships. The HR director, a no-nonsense woman named Margaret, who'd been with Whitmore Systems since its founding, listened carefully as Adrian explained the situation in the most professional terms possible. "Let me be clear about something," Margaret said when he finished. "Ms. Whitmore already came to me about this 2 weeks ago. She wanted to understand every policy and potential conflict before anything developed further. Adrian blinked. She did? She takes conflicts of interest very seriously. She suggested that if a relationship were to develop, you should report to the COO instead of directly to her, and that any decisions about your compensation or advancement should go through an independent review board. Margaret's expression softened. She's trying to do this right, Mr. Brooks, trying to protect both of you. What do you think? Honestly, Margaret leaned back in her chair. Honestly? I think it's complicated, but I also think Ms. Whitmore has spent 10 years building a company based on integrity and transparency. If anyone can navigate this ethically, it's her, and from what I've seen, you share those values. So it's possible. We could make this work? It's possible, but it requires absolute honesty with each other, clear boundaries at work, and probably some uncomfortable conversations with the executive team. She pulled out a folder. I've drafted a proposal for how to restructure your reporting relationship and establish oversight. If you both agree to this framework, I think it's manageable. Adrian reviewed the documents, relief and anxiety warring in his chest. This was real. This could actually happen. Thank you, Margaret, for taking this seriously. Mr. Brooks, I've worked in corporate America for 30 years. I've seen every kind of workplace relationship, the predatory ones, the reckless ones, the ones that destroy careers. This isn't that. This is two people trying to do right by each other and by this company. That deserves support, not judgment. That evening, Adrian met Elena at a quiet coffee shop far from downtown, away from anyone who might recognize them. She was already there when he arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of tea she hadn't touched. I talked to Margaret, Adrian said, sliding into the seat across from her. So did I. She sent me the restructuring proposal. Elena's hands wrapped around her cup but didn't lift it. Are you comfortable with this? Reporting to Marcus Chen instead of me? Marcus is the COO now? Adrian couldn't help but smile. The same Marcus who invited me to that wedding? He was promoted 3 weeks ago. Brilliant operations mind, completely trustworthy. Elena finally met his eyes. He knows about us. I told him before offering him the position. I needed someone who could oversee your work objectively. What did he say? He said, and I quote, "About damn time you found someone who sees you as human instead of a walking quarterly report." Elena's smile was tentative. He's supportive. But Adrian, I need you to understand something. If we do this, people will talk. They'll say I promoted you because of personal feelings, that you're using me for advancement, that we're both compromising the company. I know. And some of that talk will hurt, will make you question yourself, question us. Her voice was quiet now, vulnerable. I can handle it. I've dealt with worse, but I need to know you can handle it too, that it won't poison what we're building. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand, the first time he touched her like this, intentionally, intimately. Her fingers were cold and trembling slightly. Elena, I've spent 5 years being invisible, being undervalued, watching other people get credit for my work. I've been divorced, broke, and so defeated I could barely get out of bed some mornings. I survived all of that. He squeezed her hand gently. I can survive people talking. What I can't survive is walking away from you because I'm too scared to try. Tears shimmered in Elena's eyes. I've never let anyone this close. Not in 10 years. The company has been my whole life, my whole identity. And now you're here, making me want things I convinced myself I didn't need. What things? Partnership, companionship, someone to build a life with instead of just a business. She wiped at her eyes with her free hand. Someone who knows what it's like to struggle and didn't let it make them bitter. Someone who makes me want to be better. You're already pretty incredible. I'm successful. That's different from incredible. She turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. You make me want to be the person Leo sees in you. Strong and protective and good. You are good, Elena. You just haven't let yourself believe it. They sat there for a long moment, hands clasped across the table, the coffee shop noise fading into background static. This was the moment, Adrian realized, the point where they either stepped forward together or stepped back into safety. So we're doing this? He asked quietly. For real? We're doing this. Carefully, thoughtfully, with clear boundaries at work. But yes, We're doing this. Elena's smile was tremulous and beautiful. I'm terrified. Me too. Good. Means we're both taking it seriously. The expansion project reached a critical milestone 6 weeks later when the Indianapolis Distribution Center went fully operational. Partnership agreements were finalized with 18 regional companies, and initial data showed a 15% efficiency increase across the network. Elena called a company-wide meeting to announce the results, and Adrian stood at the back of the auditorium watching her command the room with the kind of confidence that had first caught his attention at that wedding. But now he knew what lay beneath that confidence: the doubt, the loneliness, the fierce determination to prove that business could be different. Now he knew her. After the meeting, Marcus Chen caught Adrian in the hallway with a knowing grin. The expansion numbers are incredible. You should be proud. It was a team effort. It was your vision executed brilliantly. Marcus lowered his voice. Also, you and Elena aren't as subtle as you think you are. The way you look at each other during meetings is basically a romantic comedy. Adrian's face heated. That obvious? To anyone paying attention, yes. But for what it's worth, I think it's good for both of you. She's been married to this company for too long, and you've been selling yourself short for years. You balance each other. People are going to say I don't deserve my position. Let them. Your results speak for themselves. The expansion succeeded because you're legitimately talented, not because you're dating the CEO. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Besides, anyone who knows Elena knows she'd never compromise her company for personal reasons. The fact that she's with you means you've earned it in every way that matters. That evening, Adrian picked up Leo from after-school care and found his son unusually quiet during the drive home. Everything okay, buddy? Adrian asked. Dad, is Ms. Elena your girlfriend? Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd been dreading this conversation, knowing it was inevitable, but not knowing how to handle it. Would that bother you if she was? Leo was quiet for a moment, thinking with the seriousness he brought to important questions. I don't think so. She's nice, and she makes you happy. But does that mean you don't love Mom anymore? Adrian pulled over to the side of the road, turning in his seat to face his son properly. This conversation deserved his full attention. Leo, I will always care about your mom. She gave me you, which is the best thing that ever happened to me. But sometimes people who love each other can't be together anymore. That doesn't mean the love was wrong. It just means it changed. Like how I used to love strawberry ice cream, but now I love chocolate better. Adrian smiled despite the weight of the conversation. Kind of like that, yeah. And Elena isn't replacing your mom. Your mom is your mom, always. Elena is someone different, someone who makes me happy in a new way. Does she make you smile like you used to? She does. Then I think it's good. You were sad for a really long time, Dad. I'm glad you're not sad anymore. Leo paused. Can I still call her Miss Elena? Of course, call her whatever feels right to you. Okay, can we have tacos for dinner? And just like that, the momentous conversation shifted to the immediate concern of dinner, the way it always did with 5-year-olds. Adrian pulled back onto the road, relief flooding through him. Leo was okay with this. Better than okay. That night, after Leo was asleep, Adrian texted Elena. I told Leo about us. He approves. His exact words were, she makes you smile like you used to. He said that? He's been watching me be sad for years. Apparently I'm not as good at hiding it as I thought. Kids see everything. How do you feel? Relieved? Grateful? Terrified that I'll somehow mess this up? You won't. And if we mess up, we'll fix it together. That's what partnership means. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just finally paying attention. I'm paying attention to everything about you. Good. Keep doing that. 3 months later, Robert, the hostile executive who'd questioned Adrian's hiring from the beginning, made his move. He called a board meeting without Elena's knowledge and presented a case that the expansion was financially reckless, that Adrian's relationship with Elena represented a conflict of interest, and that both of them should be removed from the project. Elena found out 30 minutes before the meeting when a sympathetic board member called to warn her. They're trying to stage a coup, she told Adrian in her office, her voice tight with controlled fury. Robert's convinced 3 board members that we're compromising the company for personal reasons. What do? We go to that meeting and we show them exactly why they're wrong. Elena's eyes were steel now, the CEO mask fully in place. Get Jennifer, Chen, and Marcus. Bring every piece of data we have on the expansion, revenue projections, partnership feedback, efficiency metrics, everything. The board meeting was held in the top floor conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Adrian walked in with Elena, Marcus, and Jennifer, carrying 3 years of work condensed into presentations and spreadsheets. Robert sat at the head of the table with his allies, 3 board members who looked uncomfortable but committed. The other 4 board members appeared curious but neutral. "Thank you for coming," Robert began with false courtesy. "We've called this meeting to discuss concerns about the current expansion project and potential conflicts of interest in leadership." "Let's skip the pretense, Robert," Elena said calmly, sitting down at the opposite end of the table. "You're attempting to remove me from my own company because you disagree with my strategic decisions and my personal life. So let's address both directly." She nodded to Adrian, who pulled up the first slide of their presentation. "The expansion project has generated $42 million in new revenue over 6 months," Adrian said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Partnership agreements have strengthened our market position in 18 regional markets. Client satisfaction scores are up 23%, and operational efficiency has improved across every metric we track." Jennifer added, "The cooperative model that Robert called commercially naive has attracted interest from Fortune 500 companies looking to replicate our approach. We've had 12 acquisition inquiries in the past month alone." "All of which we've declined," Elena interjected, "because this company's mission is to prove that ethical business practices are more sustainable than predatory ones. A mission some of you seem to have forgotten." Robert's face reddened. "The numbers don't address the fundamental conflict of interest. Mr. Brooks reports directly to Ms. Whitmore while maintaining a personal relationship with her. That's textbook corporate governance failure." "Actually," Marcus spoke up, "Adrian has reported to me for the past 4 months. His performance reviews are conducted by an independent committee, and his compensation is determined by the board's compensation committee, which Ms. Whitmore has no influence over. We've implemented every governance safeguard recommended by our legal and HR departments." One of the neutral board members leaned forward. "Are you saying there's no conflict?" "I'm saying we've managed the conflict transparently and ethically," Elena said. "Adrian's results are independently verified. His team's feedback is overwhelmingly positive, and his contributions to this company's success are documented and measurable. My personal relationship with him has zero impact on his professional performance or advancement." "But it looks bad," Robert insisted. The optics, Elena cut him off, her voice sharp now, "are that a successful female CEO is being questioned for dating a talented colleague while male CEOs do the same thing constantly without scrutiny. The double standard is the problem, Robert, not my relationship." Silence fell across the room. Adrian felt his heart hammering but forced himself to speak. "If my presence at this company is causing problems, I'll resign. The expansion can continue without me. Elena's vision is what matters." "No." Elena's voice was firm. "You will not resign because a few men with fragile egos can't handle competence they didn't expect. We've done everything right. We've been transparent, ethical, and successful. If the board chooses politics over results, that's their failure, not ours." The board chair, an older woman who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. "I've reviewed the documentation Ms. Whitmore provided before this meeting. The conflict of interest protocols are thorough and well implemented. The expansion results are exceptional, and frankly, I'm troubled that this meeting was called without the CEO's knowledge. That suggests the real agenda isn't governance, it's power." She turned to Robert. "Do you have any evidence that Mr. Brooks' work has been substandard or that Ms. Whitmore has shown him inappropriate favoritism?" Robert opened his mouth, closed it. "The optics are not evidence. Motion to dismiss this inquiry and formally censure those who called this meeting without proper cause." The vote was swift, 6-4 in Elena's favor. Robert stood abruptly, his face purple with rage. "This isn't over. I'll take this to the shareholders." "You'll do nothing," the board chair said coldly, "because if you continue this vendetta, I'll call for a vote to remove you from the board entirely. We're done here." After the meeting, Adrian and Elena stood on the empty terrace outside the conference room, the same terrace where they'd first really talked at Marcus's wedding reception so many months ago. "That was intense," Adrian said, his hands shaking with leftover adrenaline. You offered to resign, Elena said quietly. You would have walked away to protect me. Of course I would have. This company is your life's work. I won't be the reason you lose it. Elena turned to face him fully, her eyes bright with emotion. Don't you understand yet? You're not the reason I'd lose it. You're the reason it's worth keeping, because you remind me every day why I started this company, to prove that success and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. Elena, I love you. The words came out rushed, like she'd been holding them back too long. I love your honesty, your kindness, the way you love your son, the way you see the best in people. I love that you make me want to be better than I am. And I'm terrified of that, but I'm more terrified of not saying it. Adrian's breath caught. He'd known, of course, had felt it building between them for months, but hearing her say it made it real in a way nothing else had. I love you too, he said, the words feeling both enormous and simple. I love that you saw me when I was invisible, that you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, that you show up to kindergarten soccer games and art exhibitions because they matter to the people you care about. They stood there on the terrace, the city sprawling beneath them, and Adrian thought about the man he'd been at this same spot months ago, broken, defeated, watching life happen to other people, and the man he was now, still scared, still uncertain, but no longer invisible. Elena stepped closer, and he met her halfway, and when they kissed, it felt like every choice and struggle and moment of doubt had led exactly here, to this perfect alignment of two people who'd been lost finding each other. What happens now? Adrian asked when they finally pulled apart. Now we keep building. The company, us, a life that actually means something. Elena's smile was radiant. Together. Together, Adrian echoed, and meant it with everything he had. 6 months later, on a warm summer evening, Whitmore Systems hosted a company celebration on the lakefront to mark the expansion's complete success. The cooperative network had grown to 32 partnerships, revenue had exceeded projections by 18%, and 3 major publications had featured the project as a model for ethical business growth. Adrian stood near the edge of the gathering, watching employees and partners mingle under string lights, feeling the surreal satisfaction of something built right. Leo was there too, running around with the children of other employees, his laughter carrying across the lawn. Sarah stood nearby, talking to Jennifer Chen, the two of them having formed an unlikely friendship based on shared exasperation with Adrian's tendency to overwork himself. Marcus approached with 2 beers, handing one to Adrian. You did it, man. You actually pulled this off. We pulled it off. This was never just me. Don't undersell yourself. A year ago, you were coordinating truck routes from a cubicle. Now you're reshaping regional logistics and dating a billionaire. Marcus grinned. How does it feel? Terrifying and perfect in equal measure. That's how you know it's real. Elena found him a few minutes later, slipping her hand into his with the casual intimacy of people who'd stopped hiding. Having fun? She asked. Watching Leo chase fireflies with other kids while celebrating a project we built together? Yeah, I'm having fun. He's happy. You've done an incredible job with him, Adrian. We've done an incredible job. He adores you, you know. Asked me last week if you were going to be his stepmom someday. Elena's eyes widened. What did you tell him? I told him that was a decision we'd make together when the time was right, but that I hoped so. Adrian turned to face her fully. Was that presumptuous? No, it was perfect. Elena's smile was tremulous and joyful. I hope so too. They stood together as the sun set over the lake, the celebration continuing around them, and Adrian felt the weight of the past finally lifting. The divorce, the years of struggle, the crushing awareness of being overlooked, all of it had led here, to this moment, to this woman who'd seen him when no one else had. Leo came running over, breathless and grass-stained. Dad! Miss Elena, come see! There's a whole bunch of fireflies by the trees! Lead the way, buddy, Adrian said. They followed Leo across the lawn, his small hand in Adrian's, Elena's hand in his other. And it struck Adrian with sudden clarity that this was what happiness actually looked like. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of people who made the struggle worthwhile. Thank you, he said to Elena softly as they walked. For what? for telling me to look at you that night, for seeing something in me worth believing in, for changing everything. Elena squeezed his hand. You changed everything too. You reminded me that success means nothing if you're alone, that power without purpose is just noise, that the most important transformations happen when someone helps you see what's been right in front of you all along. They reached the trees where fireflies drifted like living stars, and Leo laughed with pure delight, trying to catch them in his small hands. Look, Dad, look how many there are. Adrian pulled Elena close, wrapping his arm around her waist as they watched Leo dance through the summer evening, chasing light. I see them, Leo. I see everything. And for the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, Adrian Brooks understood that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not because life had gone according to plan, but because he'd been brave enough to accept kindness from a stranger who became everything. The wedding that had once reminded him of loss had become the moment that quietly changed his life, proving that sometimes a single whisper could open the door to a completely new chapter. Stop looking at the past. Look at what's right in front of you. Look at the possibility. Look at love. And Adrian did, holding tight to the woman who'd made him visible and the son who'd made him brave, surrounded by fireflies and laughter, and the sweet summer promise of all the tomorrows still to come.